What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with more Destiny 2 news and updates, of course, now following the official reveal of Heresy, and as always a new episode is an interesting one. In today's video though, we're going to speak about extra clarification from Bungie on a handful of items related to the episode. That includes additional changes that we'll see as part of the sandbox tuning overall, and some things related to new content. So some extra reward teasers, changes, and yet another confirmation that Wrath of the Machine is not currently on Bungie's priority list. They have spoke about this before, but that conversation's cropped back up in the past few days, so we'll touch on it in the video guys. If you enjoyed this one, get subscribed for more Destiny content, but now let's get into it. Firstly, some additional changes that Bungie speak about right here, as well as some corrections regarding Revenant updates. So, they speak about the sandbox changes they revealed last week in the TWID, and tease that there'll be a few more minor things coming in the patch notes on launch day, as well as on social media, but they add, alongside the general tuning for glaives that we saw last week, they're also reducing the delay before the explosion happens on glaive projectile kills when using the Hunter exotic Triton Vice. So another minor benefit right there. And on top of that, they said the perks that they revealed in the TWID for the Lotus Eater, which is the rocket-assisted frame sidearm, the Void one will get in Heresy. Turns out the perks listed in the TWID were actually incorrect, so the updated list includes the first trait slot having Shoot to Loot, Beacon Rounds, Reconstruction, Strategist, Feeding Frenzy and Repulsor Brace, and the second trait slot able to get Destabilizing Rounds, High Ground, Reverberation, Withering Gaze, Adrenaline Junkie, and One for All. And generally that's a bit juicier than the ones they suggested in the TWID last week, so let us know what you'll be looking out for on that weapon. They also had to correct the perks that they'd given for the new rocket launcher, which I think is called Sinosure. I'm not certain how you say that, but one of the perks was listed as Discord, and the D2 team clarified they've updated that to the correct perk, which will be Clown Cartridge. And you can see the rest of the perks that they'd outlined right there on screen. I'm sure we'll get more details on additional quality of life and sandbox things, but in case you missed it, DMG also hinted there may be new ornaments coming for each of the exotic class items with Revenant as well. So hopefully those are going to be juicy, although it will probably be the case we'll have to buy them for silver in Heresy. We'll just have to wait and find out. Another minor bit of tuning that we'll get though, and Bungie have said they're going to fix an issue with the stag not dropping the healing rift upon death as part of that Heresy update as well. Next up though, onto more of the content that was actually revealed this week, and further clarifications from Bungie. First up, the main piece of artwork for Heresy here is pretty cool. At least on the visual side, of course Bungie are leaning into Dreadnought nostalgia, but in terms of how they've updated it, new lighting, the sort of tentacles spreading throughout the Dreadnought, which I'm very curious to see what that actually means. But on the aesthetic side, I actually think this looks pretty cool. And that's where Bungie showed off the new activity, which is called the Nether, and it appears to be a sort of interesting mix of a more survival-focused mode with an exploration component, and then elements of the Coil and Shattered Realm sort of smashed into something similar to Overthrow from the Pale Heart. It doesn't significantly break the mold on what a seasonal activity can be by the looks of it, but it is a slightly different approach at the very least, which I think has some positives there, and it's good that there will be some Dreadnought exploration in the mix as well. And it makes it more of a significant new or updated space than what we've seen in the previous episodes, at least from Bungie's gameplay. Otherwise, they showed off the Heretical Arsenal and the Adept variants of seasonal weapons, which will be able to be earned for the first time. There has been a conversation about the fact that the seasonal stuff will not be craftable, certainly a bit of disappointment from some folks in the community, and in some ways I'm more curious about what Bungie are going to do with crafting in the Frontiers expansions. Given that they're adding weapon tiers, hopefully there'll be enough time for them to actually consider how crafting will play into that and try to deliver that component to the players who want it. Otherwise though, they did show off a couple of exotic weapons. There's the Barrow Dyad exotic submachine gun, one of the most bizarre exotic weapons we've had really, and this looks to be the exotic quest weapon for the episode. The other one they showed was the Lodestar, which is going to be the season pass weapon, the Trace Rifle, and interestingly, the model for this weapon was actually leaked over a year ago. We did cover it here on the channel, but a visual artist who works for Sony actually produced this model according to their ArtStation page, and we're finally getting it over a year later. So there'll be at least 2 exotic weapons, and of course, there'll be an additional one that comes from the dungeon. Bungie haven't revealed anything related to that just yet. Players did seem to notice, though, very quickly that Bungie hadn't shown any new exotic armor, and DMG later confirmed that this episode will not receive any new exotic armor. Interestingly, I saw this discussion before the reveal as to were players pointing out that in the final season of most years, we actually haven't received new exotic armor. So it seems to line up with that. And DMG said, my point of view, and totally understandable if there's disagreement, but it came down to a case of here's a new exotic that Void Hunters can leverage to become bounty hunters paired with some aspects you already know, versus here's a new aspect that Void Hunters can leverage to become bounty hunters paired with overhauled and retuned exotics to unlock new approaches to encounters. It's definitely up to taste. In any case, we'll be collecting and passing a lot of feedback. Gut reactions and first impressions from the reveal, but also feedback over time when the episode goes live, and to see how folks crack open new build crafting potential. And while I am equally disappointed about a lack of exotic armor in terms of shiny new things, I think DMG does have an interesting point, right? Obviously, new exotics can be hit and miss. They also generally relate to a couple of abilities in the game. Whereas with this approach and the new aspects and stuff, we can interact with those with a whole bunch of existing exotics in the game, and Bungie are tuning up a lot of stuff. So I'm not saying it's a good thing that we don't get new exotic armor, but it isn't an invalid point to say that this also opens up a lot of new ways to play. Give us your thoughts down below. And if you've been holding on to exotic engrams for any new armor that comes out, just like I have, I guess at least we can focus perhaps some of the retuned exotics with those engrams. So also share your thoughts on that. Another random update though, players noticed the Salvation's Edge memento on one of the adept weapons for the season, which has been bugged for a very significant period of time. And the D2 team on X said, we'll have details on our make good inside of the TWID on Thursday, with February 4th being the fixed target. So Salvation's Edge memento should finally be obtainable. Either way, give us your first impressions on what Bungie have shown off for Heresy in the comment section. Personally, I'm most interested in the new content, whether that new mode will be able to sustain players for a few weeks, obviously the modes that they'll introduce over time, and the general quality bar of that new content. I think that's the most important thing for a lot of players, but obviously there are other topics like crafting or exotics, so share your thoughts below. A final thing to touch on here though, and DMG on X did say essentially that there are still no plans to reprise Wrath of the Machine anytime soon, as they'll be prioritizing new content instead, which is certainly disappointing for the nostalgia hunters among us. I'd love to see Wrath come back as well, although there was a bit of reporting last year that Wrath of the Machine wasn't planned to return anytime soon due to the high cost and complexity of rebuilding it for the current game engine. And the indication is that it would have cost even more than the reprisal of Kingsfall, probably because of the Seaver assets and enemies, of course. That will be one of the big components of it. So share your thoughts below, but in the midterm, or perhaps the next year or so, certainly it doesn't look like this is going to be a thing. For today though guys, that's what we have to speak about. So as always, I hope you found the video interesting. If you have, a rating below really does help us out on the channel. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section, and do us a favor and get subscribed and hit the notification bell down below if you are new around here, as it really supports us on YouTube. But otherwise, cheers for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.